That's as good to go.
Okay, Bismillah, alhamdulillah, wassalatu wassalam ala rasulullah wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa man wala. Dear viewers, assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. You're joining us on YouTube Live with iSyllabus. And tonight, inshallah, our discussion for the next hour or so will be in regards to the upcoming course in relation to deep fiqh. My name is Umar Hussain. Inshallah, I will be your host for the next hour or so. But more importantly, we have our esteemed Sheikh Amr Jamil. Sheikh Amr, assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.
Assalamu wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. How are you?
Alhamdulillah, Sheikh, I'm well. Thanks yourself.
Alhamdulillah, I'm okay.
Great. Well, thanks for taking out your time, Sheikh, on a Monday evening. And another unbelievable opportunity for all our viewers, inshallah, to get a glimpse for what is upcoming and what offers available and the opportunity that's at hand. For many of our viewers who are Glasgow-based, Scotland-based, probably UK-based, will be more than familiar with what I'm about to, the introduction I'm about to give next. But as many of you now know, alhamdulillah, iSyllabus is now online. It's around the world. Many students and viewers who are watching, alhamdulillah, the forum has really been opened up. So there were many people that are viewing and watching at the moment who are not so familiar with Sheikh Amr and not so familiar with the iSyllabus course. So just a short introduction, inshallah, before we get started. Sheikh Amr himself holds a law degree from Strathclyde University here in Glasgow, Scotland, and Islamic studies from the University of Wales. He spent 10 years studying Islamic sciences, including 6 years with distinguished scholars in the Middle East, in particular in Syria and Yemen, gaining him teaching licenses in various Islamic sciences. 2009, Sheikh Amr co-founded the SOLAS Foundation with Sheikh Rizwan Muhammad and the established the iSyllabus Islamic Studies program. Currently, Sheikh Amr is the co-director of the program. Now, that's a very brief and short synopsis of Sheikh Amr and the iSyllabus program. Alhamdulillah for the opportunity of being involved in the program and have the pleasure of taking part from the early years. And inshallah, we'll probably reflect upon some of the aspects of my experience. But for anyone who hasn't done the iSyllabus course, I can confidently say at this stage that please take out the next half an hour, 45 minutes, give us your time, give us your attention. It'll give you a flavor, inshallah, for what's available. But also, I'm just going to highlight the website at the beginning, which is www.isyllabus.org. Please feel free to go on there, have a visit, and have a glance around. But as I said at the beginning, deep fiqh and the deep fiqh course that's available is what we are talking about tonight. And just really so that we can break it down, so it's very simple, is that deep fiqh is essentially a book which Sheikh Amr is going to cover and tell us about in a bit more detail tonight. But this is a book that he has been covering for now many years and has gone over issues which are prayer, fasting, zakat, purification, and hajj. But really, before we get into any of that and give you more details of that, Sheikh, if you can just give us a little bit of insight as to the deep fiqh and what we're talking about when we're saying deep fiqh.
Alhamdulillah, wassalatu wassalamu ala rasulullah. So the topic for today is perfecting the pillars of Islam. As you know, we have 5 pillars. I mean, we kind of taught this as kids. And essentially, you know, we have to understand what is our purpose on this earth. And our purpose on this earth, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us, وَمَا خَلَقْتُ الْجِنَّ وَالْإِنسَ إِلَّا لِيَعْبُدُونَ. I didn't create mankind or jinn except to worship me. So our purpose on this earth is to worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Now, how do we worship him? Well, we have to worship him in a way that he wants to be worshipped. We can't just make it up as we go along. You do get people, you know, who, you know, might say, well, I'm going to, for the sake of God, sincerely stand on one leg and on the mountain in the cold and the rain, and that's me worshipping God, you know, because I'm doing it for God. I've got no monetary gain. But that's not how God's asked you to worship him. You know, God doesn't want you to just stand your leg and in a mountain. You know, he wants you to earn a living. He wants you to look after your family. He wants you to do all those things. However, he also asks that from time to time, you have to do certain activities. So some things that we have to do every day, and that is the prayers, the 5 daily prayers, and they're spread out from the beginning to the end of the day. Some things we have to do once a year. So once a year is the month of Ramadan. We have to fast the month of Ramadan. So we need to know how to fast properly, what breaks the fast, what doesn't break the fast. Similarly, if we're going to pray, we need to know, well, how do I make wudu, what breaks my wudu, how do I do ghusl, what breaks my ghusl. If I'm menstruating, women's menstruating, when do you determine the end of her menses, and so that she can start praying or start fasting. So that all comes into obviously the prayer, because it's a daily thing. And so we need to know the rules so that we know that we're praying properly. And then there's certain things you do once a year. So you calculate your zakat once a year. In fact, just today on text, somebody who's in the financial sector actually asked me, is there any short course on zakat? And I said, look, it's one of the modules in the 1-year diploma course. Just do the diploma course and you cover that as well. So obviously he's in finance and he's coming across zakat to his clients. That's what he was asking. So zakat is something which is a form of ibadah. It's an obligation. It's not a voluntary thing. Sadaqah is voluntary. So charity we give is voluntary. That's more relaxed. Zakat has got conditions. You can only give to certain types of people, certain causes. And then how much zakat do you give? How do you calculate that? Who gives zakat? Who doesn't give zakat? Who can you give zakat to? All of that comes into it. And then again, that's once a year, and then once a lifetime. So something which is every day, which is prayer, once a year, which is Ramadan, once a year, which is zakat, and then once in a lifetime, which is the Hajj. And now, obviously, in the past, every kind of group used to go with usually an imam or somebody of knowledge who can answer the questions. Now that the groups have been taken away, it's probably even more important, more essential that people study the rules of Hajj. And people who have gone to Hajj, some of our students have told me that when they went to Hajj, they took their book, which I'm going to talk about, with them, and that was their primary reference. And I actually told them as well, when you're there, stick to what you know, because it's like, everyone's got an opinion, and you can get very confused quickly because there's so many people saying different things. A lot of misinformation as well. So I said, just stick to what you know. And then, you don't have that kind of confusion. I remember in Hajj, I went for a couple of years with one of the groups as a guide. And some of our students, some of our syllabus students came in Mina, came looking for me and said, look, the Maulana in our group is saying such and such, but I've never heard that, what's the answer? So they had come from another group, because it's about who you trust or who you take knowledge from. And they were like, I've never heard this. I'm not sure. Are they telling me the right thing, or is it a different school of thought, or what is it? So then you sometimes have to explain, look, no, yeah, that's got a basis, or whatever it is. So it's very important to have a knowledge of Hajj, because if, inshallah, everyone wants to do Hajj at some point. Umrah as well, everyone goes to Umrah, needs to know the basics of Umrah. What can you do in Ihram? If you do something wrong, do you give sadaqah? Do you give a sacrifice? Which one is it? When do you do that? So that's all of that is essential, and that's something that is not specific to a Muslim. So it's not like, certain things some Muslims might need to do. So, for example, the funeral prayer is what's called Fard Kifaya. It's a communal obligation, which means if a group of Muslims do it, then the rest of the community doesn't need to do it. But then you have a certain type of obligation, which is an individual obligation, meaning every single Muslim, irrespective of the background, has to do, like the prayer, the 5 daily prayers. There's no exception to that. It's not like the rich don't have to do it, the poor have to do it, or anything like that. No, everyone has to pray. And because it's something that everyone needs to do, that means everyone needs a base level of knowledge of how to do that correctly. Zakat, again, if you've got a certain amount of wealth, you'll be obliged to give zakat. And a lot of people get their zakat wrong. I mean, just today, I was talking to my mum. She had some jewelry, and she goes, I've written on a bit of paper how much zakat to give. And I'm like, yeah, but mum, that's based on the value of gold whenever you wrote that. The value of gold's changing all the time, so you need to adjust that per year to know that you're giving the right amount of zakat on your jewelry. So it's things like that. People just estimate and maybe get their zakat wrong. Some people then, when they learn the rules, have to backdate their zakat. So, it's important to know these rules.
Lots of there that you've covered, Sheikh, and many people, certainly from my experience of just discussing with people and possibly even shared the view, is that you think, well, when I go on Hajj, I'll learn about that. That's not really a problem. When that time comes, I'll maybe look into it and I'll do a crash course in about 10 days and try and learn everything I need to know. Some of the bigger topics that might happen once in your lifetime. But then we have topics such as purification, salah. So purification when it comes to your daily tasks, going about your workplace, what you can and can't do. Do I need to shove my foot in the sink in front of everyone? Can I get away with doing masa over that sock? Really, really, really important details. And in fact, issues which can stop people from either praying and not praying, being in wudu and not being in wudu. And I know that's not an option, but that's how important they are. To also, for sisters, menstrual cycles, sisters that are pregnant, questions around that. So we've got more frequent questions, which maybe people are scared to ask because they're now 30, 40 years old, and they think, well, this is maybe knowledge that I should have known a long time ago as a child. How important is it to now not just sit on the fence and not think, well, I don't really want to know that? And how an amazing opportunity is this, an important opportunity is it to actually now, at whatever age you are, get to grips with that sort of information?
Yeah, so traditionally what would happen in Islamic society is children would, at the age of 7, would start learning. Oftentimes they would memorize bits of Quran, memorize certain, so the traditional way they would basically memorize like a poem, and that poem would be the summary of the rules of like wudu and ghusl and things like that. And so they just memorize it like a poem. It's almost like a song, right? You just kind of and then as they get older, when they get to puberty and they need to do these things, then they would start getting taught the commentary. So you kind of got the memorization, and then they would teach you what that means. So that was a traditional system. So the thing at the top, the poem, that is usually called the matan, and then you'd have a commentary which is called the sharh. And then there's certain things in the commentary always need a commentary. So there's a commentary in the commentary, which is called the hashia. So this is the traditional kind of layout of books. And so what we did in this course, which is deep fiqh, is concentrate on these 5 pillars. So salah, purification, which is your wudu, ghusl and all that, menstruation. Then salah, prayer. Then fasting, Ramadan, Sawm, and then zakat, and then Hajj. So it's covering your 5 pillars. So you basically covered, and it's going to, cover 80% of the questions, 90% of the questions that you're going to come across, either yourself or people will ask you. So the good thing about this is that not only can you rectify your own prayer, but in your family, you can correct other people's prayer as well. So the students have done the course who have then actually taught their families, so they've actually corrected, like they've seen their fathers been praying incorrect, his feet's in the wrong direction or something, and he's been able to tell his father, look, by the way, that's wrong, you need to kind of just correct that. So basic questions, because it's a daily thing, the questions are always coming up and up again, so you need to learn it and also have a reference. So this is actually a classical book. This is a book, it's called Ascent to Felicity.
Okay.
You can buy it, and it's in Arabic. It's called Maraqi Sadat. So this book, the author actually, Shumbur Ali, is the author of another famous book which is called Nur al-Idah. And Nur al-Idah is the first text that you would go to study when you went to a madrasa. So all the imams that in the mosques, when they go to madrasa, they learn Arabic. The first book in fiqh, in jurisprudence, they do is Nur al-Idah, which is essentially the same author. And then it's got footnotes. This one's got footnotes by Faraz Khan, which is brilliant, because what he's done is he's given you, he's taken from all the books and given you the summary of what he thinks you'll need living day to day. You don't need to know details of certain issues, like if something falls into a well, is the water pure to make wudu, because irrelevant now. So he's not going to concentrate on that. So the commentary on that is low. But other issues where, like say, travel prayer or something like that, which is can be quite complicated, he's going to expand a bit more. So so he brings in like a lot of the modern issues, like when zakat, he tells you like how much weight of gold you'd have to have and so forth. So the text is very relevant. So by doing this, you're covering one textbook, one classical textbook in the Hanafi school, and it means that you've covered cover to cover these four important areas. And so, for example, if you've studied the chapter on fasting, okay, so it's October, we just covered the chapter of fasting. It means when Ramadan comes in March, you can just go to your textbook and spend maybe a half a day and just read up and refresh yourself, because you've got it there. You've made all your notes. You've got everything there. It's a reference text. Someone asked you in Ramadan, by the way, I did this. Does that break my wudu? You've got a reference now. You can go check it, check the footnotes. Sometimes people, students will ask me a question. I say it's in footnote 290. Go to your book, and so they can. So basically, it means it's a book for life. You've got it for
Absolutely.
life. You can refer back to it for the next 40 years of your life. Any issues that you have, any kind of questions, the first place you go is your book. If you go to Hajj, you take your book with you. If you're traveling and you go to Ramadan in another country, you take it with you. So it means it becomes like your companion. And I've had students who've told me that, but after having done this book, the imam, in their particular mosque, said a mas'ala, but it was incorrect. And because the brother had done the book, actually he asked the imam, can you just, is that, it's kind of different to what I've learned. And the imam said, no. And he showed him the book, and the imam said, actually, something, you're right. So this was an instant where the student was correcting the imam in the mosque. So this is the benefit, it means that we're helping everybody. We've had doctors who have, our medical kind of students have done this book, and through the principles of knowing about the fasting, they can then help people who come to them and say, look, should I fast? I've got this condition. So what I do when people come to me, I say, look, I'm not a doctor, but I've got a student who's a doctor who knows enough fiqh to give you the right answer. And so you can refer then people to these doctors who are students as well, who then know, obviously they know the medicine, but they know the principle. The principle, is it going to harm the person if they fast? And they can work that out. But in listening to that person's diagnosis, the person's diabetic, or the person's got this condition, needs this medication, they'll know, can you move the medication about, can you not? So they can figure out whether the person should fast or not, and give them a very good kind of bespoke advice. And that's the only reason they can do that is because they've covered a book like this. So they know the principles of when a person fasts, when a person doesn't fast, and if they can't fast, then what do they do, and so forth. So I guess that's the benefit of the book, because it covers in quite detail all the major things that you're doing on a daily basis. Like, how many janazas have you been to? You don't know, tomorrow you might be called upon to do a ghusl. The book covers all that. The book's got that, covered. How you do the prayer, janaza prayer, how do you wash a dead body, what do you do, so all the kind of basic stuff is covered in the book, and it gives you that kind of confidence as well, that you've got something very solid to rely on, so that sometimes when people say certain things, you can say, well, that I'm not sure, because it's because you've got something that is solid that you can go back to. So many years ago, for example, in Ramadan, this is when the fasting days were long, and I suggested that not all, but some mosques should do shorter Taraweeh. And this was a bit blasphemous for some people, because it's like religiously done. 20 rak'ahs is religiously done. But the first thing is it's sunnah, and of course emphasize sunnah, no one's saying it's not. The second thing is that because the days were so long, you probably remember Maghrib was at like 10, and people were like rushing, really. They were just eating, rushing. They're praying Taraweeh, going home, eating again, going to sleep. And, if you've got a 9 to 5 job, that's hard. That's hard. It's not easy. So I said, look, why are we making people pray 20 rak'ahs, right? Sorry, not 20 rak'ahs. Why are we making people do a whole chapter of the Quran when we don't need to? We can just do short surahs. So if people have got long days at work or school or other things, they can then go to the place which has got shorter prayers. And the people who want to do the hardcore, Juz Spara, they can go to the mosque. And a lot of people, and this shows you that people haven't studied, because people are like on Facebook, oh, how can you say this? And I just actually quoted this book, said, look, go to chapter on Taraweeh prayers, and it literally says in the footnote that it is recommended to read one chapter. However, if it will lead to less people attending, it is better to read shorter surahs and have a larger congregation than a shorter congregation, smaller congregation, and longer recitation. So I said, I'm not making stuff up. This is classical fiqh. It's in the books. It's not me. I'm just quoting the book, but again, because, it's not the done thing, people will have an issue. But then this is why you have to then say, look, our discussions can't be based on emotion. It's got to be based on knowledge. Is what do the books say, and not what what we think. So sometimes we actually make things harder for ourselves when the book's telling you it's not that hard.
SubhanAllah, that's a beautiful example you give, Sheikh. But for our viewers, really, a couple of things that I wanted to maybe highlight. If you haven't already picked up on, first of all, you truly are getting a wealth of experience. Sheikh Amar's not about to sit on the screen and blow his own trumpet, as they say. But this is genuinely a unique opportunity. There's nothing else like it, not in our country that by far, in the sense that we have at our disposal two predominantly, obviously, founders, Scholar Sheikh Rizwan Muhammad and Sheikh Amar Jamil. There are other scholars on the course throughout different programs, different cities, etc. But we have genuinely well-versed, studied the accreditations, qualifications of scholars. You guys can find them on the website. You guys can have a look and read bios and profiles. But the example that Sheikh Amar just gave is, in my opinion, a classic example of just how important a course such as iSyllabus is, because we're living in a time and age where there is so much confusion, where there is lots of misinformation, where people are very strong-minded, have their opinion. Your own local masjid may have its own views on certain things which you don't know whether it's right or wrong. You may have other parts of the community which are doing things different to you, which you may want to get a greater understanding of. So in actual fact, there are many, many, many reasons to do this course. However, one of the main reasons that I would absolutely suggest to you is that there is at your disposal the tutorials for the Deep Fiqh course, which this course now, alhamdulillah, is in actual fact online based. You have tutorials which will be uploaded. So they will be there for you and they'll be available for you to access, not just at set times, but they're there when you need to go back to them, when you need to refer to them. So if a masala came up in your life, during your day-to-day working life or in your family, it's something you had to clarify, and you knew that this was covered, that tutorial will be there for you to access online. But even more importantly is Sheikh will be able to give us further details, but there are online tutorials that happen every 6 weeks, I believe. Sheikh will clarify that, but every so often there will be online tutorials where you'll be able to ask questions, certain masalas where it may have come up, where you have the opportunity for Sheikh to maybe clarify them with you or go into more details. So that's the first very important thing, is that hopefully the viewers are getting a flavour of just what is at disposal here. Not only is this an opportunity to go over the classical text in a lot more detail, but really having that wealth of experience. Sheikh also touched upon the fact that the iSyllabus course has got access to a wealth of other professions, and one of the main ones being the medical profession. And we've touched upon applying the rules that we're talking about in a modern world. See, this is where the difficult part comes in. Many people, no doubt, can learn the context of things. Many people can learn the books and read the books, but having the view of applying it in the life and the day and age that we live in today, no doubt, is an extremely important part and an important aspect to all of this. She gave the example of Taraweeh and trying to live a 9-to-5 day job. And again, you may have other issues around zakat or other complex matters around your your health and how that applies to fasting, how that applies to your wudu. So all of these different aspects are covered within the Deep Fiqh course. And I want to just mention before I come back to Sheikh Amar, the fact that there is an early bird offer on at the moment. So if you're considering it, please take steps now, because the course is normally £445, and it's available just now for anybody that's going to book up for the early bird on at £345. So you're saving that £100, which certainly in this day and age with our crisis of living is clearly a lot. So please take to the website. It's www.isyllabus.org. Have a look there, sign yourself up. But also, more importantly, you'll get to see the one-year diploma course that's also there. You'll get to see step-by-step diploma course for 2023. Again, it has an early bird price of £295. But our focus today clearly is on the Deep Fiqh and also Deep Aqidah. But please visit the website. It's where you'll get to see these different courses, what we're talking about, what we're pushing. But the important thing is that please go on and have a look. Sheikh, the Deep Fiqh course, we're talking about the fact that it's going to be, if you can just give the viewers, people are out there thinking about, there may be viewers thinking, okay, I really like the sound of this. I just don't know whether I'm going to be able to meet its demands. Can you maybe give the viewers who have not taken part in iSyllabus at all, just a little bit about what would be expected of them?
So we've tried to make it as flexible as possible. So we break the course. It's a 1-year course, 12 months, and we break it into 6-week blocks. So for example, the first 6 weeks is the chapter on purification. There's a couple of blocks on the prayer, because it's obviously a lot longer. Then you have one block on fasting, and then one block on fasting and zakat, and then the last block is on the Hajj. So it's broken down into blocks, 6-week blocks. So what we do is we upload lessons on week 1, and then people can go through those lessons in their own time, as many times as they want. Actually, the first lesson is on our YouTube channel, so people can go and watch the first lesson for themselves and see what it looks like. So they'd have the textbook in front of them. I'm basically going through the textbook, more or less reading it. It's the way that the classical way of teaching students, which has been there for centuries. So when I went to study in Syria, and I wanted to study a book in fiqh, I'd get a book, and then either the teacher reads it and then commentates, or the student reads it and then stops the student and then explains. So you read it cover to cover, with your teacher, and then that means you have now got a connection through of that book through your teacher, and your teacher will have been taught by another teacher, and that teacher have been taught by another teacher, and that will go back to the actual author. So there will be a direct connection between you and the author. So the author taught his student, the student taught his student, come down to your teacher, and then to you. So you have a direct connection to the actual book. So in terms of authenticity of knowledge, you can't get anything better than that. This is called sanad, a chain of narration. So that is probably a really big part of it. The other thing is that we then have a student forum. So on the website, you have a student forum. You can ask whatever question you want on that topic. So that topic, like you said, someone's asked you a question, or you got a question, maybe you're discussing it in the family and someone asks you something you don't know, you can just pop onto the student forum, ask the question, and then I will answer it, either writing, or I can sometimes put an audio note, because it sometimes needs a lot more explanation. And so the student forum's there to make sure that you can ask whatever questions you want whenever you want. And then in week 6 of the block, we have a live Zoom tutorial where you can come on and ask your questions in live, or ask, certain passage you didn't understand, you want me to explain it again. And the reason for that is 6 weeks of learning, and then the 7th week is an assessment. So we have an online multiple choice question. You get, I think, 24 hours. So you just log on whenever you want to, and basically you ask questions, multiple choice, true and false, just to test your knowledge. And then at the end of it, you've completed the course. You know that you've successfully completed it. I mean, if you don't want to, you don't have to do the assessments, but it's there to just check your knowledge. And then the week after, it's again a new block, and then you move on. So you keep doing this all throughout the year, which means that it's flexible in the sense of you've got, I don't know, you're an accountant and it's January and you've got all this work on, you've not had a chance to do the course, you can catch up. Or you've gone holiday or something's happened, you had a death in the family, you've got that flexibility to catch up whenever you want. The recordings there, you can watch it as many times as you want. So like I said, I would say to people, probably if you're thinking about this, you can go on the website, sorry, not on the website, on our YouTube channel, and just watch the first lesson, and you'll see me going through the lesson, explaining, beginning to end. Then the lessons are 45 minutes once a week. So your commitment is just basically one 45-minute lesson a week, which is not a huge amount. And the assessments are obviously optional, but most people tend to do it. And the course is 12 months. So we'll start in October and you'll be finished by, well, it's actually less than 12 months. You start in October and you finish in August. So it's 10 months. 10 months, yeah.
Alhamdulillah. Perfecting the pillars of Islam, that's our heading for today. For anybody who's just joined us, and we're talking about covering the essentials, essentially, of our deen, from our prayers to fasting, zakat, hajj, and doing these things correctly, and making sure that we're doing them correctly. We may have mothers who are viewing this and fathers who are viewing this who have children. You may not be 100% confident on what you have learned growing up. It may be old school tradition, and you think to yourself, well, actual fact, maybe it's time that I brush up on these skills and make sure that I'm doing things right. Or alternatively, you may be a student who's just in that phase of learning and still in that mode of learning and having an extra class once a week, or having online tutorials. You're already in that zone of studying. It's maybe the perfect time. Honestly, if I could rewind back my time of when I was a student and think about how much time I had, it's unbelievable. Especially if you're a student, I would absolutely encourage everybody who's viewing, because doing this while you study is absolutely the ideal time. But with that being said, as Sheikh's already pointed out, there'll be mothers out there who think that their timetable is absolutely jam-packed. Fathers out there who work around the clock. But the reason why this is now a part of the beauty of the course is that with the online tutorials and the recorded live sessions, alhamdulillah, it's absolutely doable. With if you can cut out a program here or there, or whatever else we give time to, it's absolutely doable. Just really before we come back, I wanted to highlight the fact that this early bird offer is on at the moment. You would save £100, and that's 345 currently for the Deep Fit course, as opposed to 445. So please visit the website at www.isyllabus.org, where you'll be able to see that offer and be able to sign up. Certainly issues which may seem obvious to you, or you might think you know majority of things, or you might even think that actually you don't have to really undertake a course like this. I can assure you, I think I could probably do this course 10 years in a row, and I may still have absolute aspects weekly where I would still be turning to the books and figuring out, am I doing this right or am I doing this wrong? Examples include such as, it was only until I became a parent that I had to realize, well, my son has just, as I'm changing his nappy, urinated and it's landed on my top, and I'm in the middle of Silverburn shopping centre and I've got about 15 minutes to get my Maghrib in. What am I doing in that scenario? Am I having to go buy a new top? Am I able to just shove myself under the sink? Do I need to wash it? What do I do? Can I just use wipes? And there's very specifics, and it's all black and white. This stuff isn't complicated, but it's really until you're in that scenario where you think, oh God, what do I do here? Again, being in the park, it's a nice day. You have a family barbecue. A dog runs up, starts licking the ball that you're trying to play with, starts licking you, has licked your socks, your shorts, whatever trousers, joggers you've got on. Again, you're in a situation here now where you think, well, how do I deal with this? Is this something that I need to, can I perform? Plan to just perform Zohar while I was here? Do I need to change? These are just topics or issues that I'm thinking off the top of my head. Again, we've mentioned earlier on being able to do muscle over your socks. Do you need to be, if you're in a work environment, or is it a case of you have to take the socks off and do wudu? Sheikh, examples such as this, no doubt you've seen throughout the course, throughout the years that you've been teaching it, which, and until you're in these types of scenarios, you probably don't think much of it. Or I'll give you another example. While I was in Silverburn, I'm obviously in Silverburn a lot. My wife's clearly sending me too much. While I was there, I asked a brother when I was in the prayer room if he wanted to do Jamaat with me, and this was before I had done the course. Obviously, didn't know, and he said to me, "No, you go ahead. I still need to read my Dhuhr." And I couldn't understand why he was trying to make up a previous salah, and why he wasn't just joining me in my Jamaat, and whether he was right in doing that or whether he was wrong in doing that, or whether he should have made up his Dhuhr first, whether I could have waited. It became, in my head, there was 10 questions surrounding that one issue, because before that was very straightforward. If I had walked into a room and somebody's there ready to read, sure, I just thought maybe this guy should just join with me and we should just both read. But he had prayers that he had to make up. So these are scenarios which happen all the time, which are day-to-day scenarios, which all of a sudden people think that there might not be questions around them, or they're small issues, but in actual fact, they're extremely important.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, that sometimes you're just unsure what to do. Or, I mean, when you were talking about the dog thing, I remember years ago, I was walking to Central Mosque with someone, and a pigeon, was happy to see the person I was with. So let him know that he was flying above. And so landed on his shoulder or something, and he just froze. And he goes, "Oh no, right, I need to go back to the office now, right?" And I turned around, I said, "It's okay, you can pray with that." He's, "Can you?" I said, "Yeah." I said, "You just need to wipe it off." He goes, "Seriously?" I said, "Yeah." He goes, "It must be amazing just to have fingertip knowledge like that," because that was just going to be a crisis. He was like, "Oh no, I need to now go back to the office, need to change, and then I'm going to miss Juma now, or this. But just knowing that he could do that, he was like, "Oh, all right, okay." So
Absolutely.
the learning the fiqh actually makes your life easier. It actually makes it easier, because then you know what you can do. I mean, I'm sure you've been in a certain mosque in Glasgow where a child's crying because the mother's praying, and people get upset because it's disturbing people. But often, I mean, there's rules obviously, but a woman can pick up the child in prayer. There's some conditions to it. Again, so that little bit of knowledge can not only improve your salah, but everyone's in the mosque as well at the same time. So, but again, because people don't know, they're like, "Oh, I can't do anything." So it's these little things which actually improve. It actually improves your day to day. And like you said, you're always thinking, "Shall I do? Can I do this? Can I do that?" And it's the fiqh's there to give you a practical solution. I remember once it was Ramadan. I remember the days were very long. So we were studying the chapter on fasting, and I said, "Look, according to the three schools, the dispensation of fasting when you're traveling is only applicable if at the time of Fajr, because that's when the day starts, that's when the fast starts. If at Fajr you were a traveler, but if you were not a traveler at Fajr, you were a resident, the default position is a resident has to fast." And only one school, the Hanbali school, allows that person then to break the fast once they start traveling. So this guy said, "Well, I'm going down to London, but the day is really long, right?" I said, "Okay." So he lived in Cumbernauld, but his parents lived in Glasgow. So I said, "Look, what you should do," I said, "Can you come to your parents and spend the night there?" He goes, "Yeah." I said, "Well, if you do that, you're a traveler. So you live in Cumbernauld. As soon as you leave Cumbernauld and come into Glasgow, you're a traveller now, because you're intending to travel more than 48 miles. So when Fajr came in, you're a traveller and you don't need to fast that day. So now you can go to London, 18-hour fast. You can go to London not fasting, come back and make the day up." And he was just like, "Oh," because it just made his life so much easier. Whereas before he was like, "Oh no, I'm going to have to fast." So it's that kind of stuff, which when you start learning the rules, you realize, okay, this is actually, I can do this. And then you can make life easier, not only for yourself, but you make it easier for your family as well. But again, when people don't know, they stick to what they know. And what happens is sometimes you can make things harder for yourself when you don't need to.
Just I suppose on a side note to that, Sheikh, we're talking about, and I know we've mentioned a lot about how this makes your life easier. And absolutely, for many of us, that's a big part of it. Um, maybe a step further than that would be that you may be the source of unifying an entire family. For example, you may be a scenario whereby in Ramadan people don't know why we're following a particular timetable. It may be that there are several Eids coming up, and there's different, and half the family is going by one day, and the other half of the family is going by another day. Sometimes I know, obviously, much of our discussion has been around day-to-day things and absolutely making life easy, but then sometimes we're talking crucial decisions, which we're talking about unity amongst community, unity amongst family. It's actually much more. And really, if you think about it, if we strip it back, if we all had this knowledge and understanding, maybe we'd be saving a lot of problems that we create for ourselves.
Yeah, absolutely. And just sometimes it's just the not knowing, you can actually make things not only difficult, but you can actually harm people. So I remember years ago, this a person basically came and had bulimia, and you know, she obviously had health issues, and basically the person was I don't know, their relative saying, look, the girl just fasts but is in bed all day long, gets out, you know, just to fast and goes back to bed, and I said that doesn't sound as if that person should be fasting in the first place. So I spoke to one of our medical students who obviously and explained it and said, yeah, that person should be fasting. So again, out of lack of knowledge, we're just putting somebody, possibly their health, at risk, because, you know, we just don't have the basic knowledge. So the basic knowledge not only makes your life easier, but it also avoids harming people when there's no need for it.
Absolutely. Dear viewers, you're listening to Sheikh Amr Jamil on iSyllabus Live and YouTube Live. The topic of discussion is perfecting the pillars of Islam, performing our prayers, for example, fasting, zakat, hajj, all issues which are extremely important in the day-to-day life of a Muslim. Sometimes maybe not daily, but yearly or annually. And alhamdulillah, this is an unbelievable opportunity at our disposal, whether you're here in Glasgow, Scotland, UK, or whether you're online. We're online now, so you can be worldwide and you can be tuning in from wherever you are. But most importantly, this is access to a course delivered by esteemed scholars, well-renowned, and ultimately applying these rules that we should know in a modern world that we live in, and trying to really effectively answer a lot of the daily questions that we have. Sheikh, alhamdulillah, we've been able, I hope that we've been able to give our viewers a much needed taster of what this course entails and what they can gain from it. And before we conclude, in any conclusion or concluding remarks from yourself, if I can ask you to do one thing, there will be many viewers that are watching this who are either thinking, I really like the sound of this course, and I actually probably think it's really important. I think I should do it. But I do have a busy work schedule ahead, and there'll be many mothers who are thinking, yep, that sounds great, but actually life is very busy, including fathers or students who might be thinking, well, actually, yep, sounds great, and I would love to do it, but maybe I'll make time for it. Two things, Sheikh, if I can just ask you to maybe comment on. Number one, is it really about waiting for these kind of opportunities when they're at our convenience, or is it really about making that sacrifice? And if somebody is making that sacrifice, just how big of an ajr is that? How big of a reward is that sacrifice? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala recognizes how there is so much already going on, but just how important is it to make that time, and what is the reward involved? I would ask you to maybe mention that in any conclusion remarks that you have.
Well, the first thing is that, remember, every second that you spend going through that book, you'll be in a state of ibadah, in a state of worship. So you're worshipping Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala by learning how to worship him. So that is, you know, it's like worship is not just reading Quran, fasting Ramadan, praying your salah, right? Worship has many forms, and studying, seeking knowledge is a form of worship. And many scholars actually say it's more superior to doing voluntary fasts and voluntary prayers. because the voluntary stuff only benefits you, but learning knowledge benefits you and benefits others, so it's superior. And also, this is an obligation upon every Muslim. So when Ramadan comes, for example, first of Ramadan kicks in, you are obliged to know the basic rules of fasting, right? If you break your fast out of ignorance because you didn't bother to learn the rules, then you will be held accountable for spoiling that fast, because God's asked you to fast and you didn't learn how to fast. Same thing with prayer. God's asked you to pray 5 times a day. If you didn't learn how to pray, or what breaks your prayer, or what are the conditions for prayer, then you could potentially be praying for 10 years, but you've been missing something in your prayers, so your prayer's been invalid all that time. I mean, it's not worth it. And really, what is it you are asking? What 45 minutes a week at any time? You don't have to log on at a certain time. Any time, morning, afternoon, evening. You could be going to work, have it on listening. You could be going on the train, listening to it. You can access it on your phone. You can access it on your laptop. You can access it anywhere. So you can go through it as many times as you want. So really, it's made so flexible that you have to make time. Anything important in life, you make time for it. If people go to the gym 5 days a week, it's because their health is important to them. If somebody watches something on Netflix religiously, it's because that's important to them. So whatever is important to you, brushing your teeth is important, so no one misses it because it's important. Don't say, well, I could save 2 minutes if I don't brush my teeth. So because anything which you attach importance to, you will make time for that thing. So there can be nothing greater than, for example, learning how to pray properly, because we know in the Day of Judgment, it's the first thing we're going to get asked is our prayers. So we have to get that. You don't have a choice. You have to get your prayers right. You have to get your fasting right. You have to get your zakat right. These are the basics of our religion. And then you need to be able to pass that knowledge on to your children. So when you're teaching your children, if you don't know how to pray, how are you going to teach your children? If your child turns in and says, Dad, I made this mistake, what did I do? And you're like, well, I don't know either. And he's like, well, have you not been praying for the last 40 years? Like, how can you not know, this basic thing? And I mean, I've had elders, older people who ask very basic questions on wudu and things like that. So that begs the questions, like, all these years, what have they been doing? Where has it been? So it's about how much importance you attach to this. So this is like the bread and butter. This is like the basics of the basics that you have to have down. You don't really have a choice on it. You have to get your basics done. You have to know how to read Quran. You need to know how to pray. You need to know what breaks a fast. You spend 18 hours not eating and drinking, and then you do something and break your fast. You spoil it. You got to make it up then. Zakat, if you've not been calculating it properly. I mean, for example, when do most people give zakat in the year? I asked you that question. When do most people give zakat?
Most people give it in Ramadan.
Right. Ramadan's got to do with fasting. It's got nothing to do with zakat.
Absolutely.
Right. The only reason they do it is because it's the only month they kind of know. But the rules of zakat is that it's when you go over a certain threshold of wealth on that date, which could be any date in the lunar calendar, that is your zakat date, your calculation date. You can give the money in Ramadan, but your calculation date is specific. So my calculation date, for example, is the 23rd of Rajab. Yours might be something else, right? So that means on the 23rd of Rajab, I have to calculate my zakat on that date. I don't calculate in Ramadan. So there's a basic mistake that people make. So, calculations are wrong often, or they're giving too much or giving too little. So these are things which I don't really think we have the novelty or not novelty. We have the, I can't remember the word, but we don't have the freedom to just to just kind of say, yeah, it's fine, I don't need to do it. No, you have to do it, because you can't perform that thing without knowing this knowledge.
Jazakallah Sheikh. To all our viewers, you have been listening to Sheikh Ahmed Jamil from iSyllabus. At our disposal as it stands as an early bird offer for this course. Please go visit our website, www.isyllabus.org. It's perfecting the pillars of Islam. It's what it is. It's the essentials. It's the musts. It's the must-haves. It's the knowledge that we have to have in the bank for the day-to-day stuff, for the annual stuff, and for the essentials of our deen. Not only for our sake, but for the sake of our children, and in some cases, sake of our parents and our siblings, those around us who may or may not be doing things right. Take the opportunity. You could have been anywhere today. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala chose you to click on this link and listen to this. So it may very well be that this course is destined for you. So if you are interested, please, as I say, take full the opportunity that's available to you, which is the early bird offer of 345 as opposed to 445. Sheikh Ahmed Jamil, thank you very much, and Jazakallah khair for, as always, taking out your time, especially at this late hour of the night, for the viewers. Unless there is anything else you wish to add, we can conclude, inshallah.
Jazakallah khair. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Sheikh. Jazakallah khair.
Assalamu alaikum.
Assalamu alaikum.